Hi, good afternoon and welcome everyone to our webinar with the title Cultural Exchange to the UK After Brexit, What Happens Next? My name is Bojana Panevska and I'm an advisor for DutchCulture Center for International Cooperation. We are really happy to organize this webinar together with the support of the Dutch Embassy in the United Kingdom and to answer all or most of your questions around the topic of what's going to happen when I go to work in the UK after Brexit starts, or from the beginning of this year. What has changed, what are the news, and what are the best ways to operate in this whole process. I will start with introducing the program of the day. We will first hear a presentation from Koen Houking, who's a policy officer at the Embassy of the Kingdom of the Netherlands in London, and he will tell us a bit more about how the embassy can, what kind of questions the embassy encountered in the past months, or what are the expectations for the next questions and the certain changes that are happening. Afterwards, we will hear a discussion between Laurens Meijer, he's also a colleague of mine from DutchCulture, he's advisor for Mobility Infopoint, together with Marie Fall, who is a president of the board of On the Move, as well as an advisor for Arts Infopoint UK. And I'm also happy to say that they are currently in our studio in the office of DutchCulture. You will see them very shortly. Afterwards, I will give a short presentation on the updated database for UK, for Transartist, which is our other website, a part of DutchCulture. And we did these mappings with the support of the Dutch Embassy, but I will come back to that later on. Afterwards, we will hear short statements from Jan Sprengers, who's Secretary Program and Internationalization at the Performing Arts Fund here in the Netherlands, as well as Davy Karsten Schuler, who's a grants officer at the Mondrian Funds, as well here in the Netherlands. It is also with my pleasure to welcome Paul Bailey, who's head of Residencies and Awards at ACME in London. That is one of the biggest largest visual arts residencies in Europe, if not in the world, that they can accommodate a lot of artists at the same time. We will conclude this webinar with Q&A. So for all our participants, either here on StreamYard, you can ask your questions directly. And since we are also streaming live on DutchCulture Facebook page, as well as on Transartist Facebook page, in case you didn't manage to subscribe on time, please feel free to ask your questions over there as well, and we'll get them and make sure that we address them to the right people, to the who are part of our webinar. I will now maybe give words to Laurens Meijer to say a few words about the other workshop that it's kind of the other side of the coin on the webinar that we are currently organizing, and then we can start with the presentation.
Good afternoon. Together with this workshop, DutchCulture is organizing together with Arts Infopoint UK a session on mobility from the United Kingdom to several countries, and on the 27th of May there will be a session about mobility towards the Netherlands and towards Belgium, which will be hosted with my colleague from the culturele in Flanders. Now we switch to Koen Houking and Roel van de Ven.
Hi, thank you, Laura.
Hi.
I think Roel van de Ven could not make it today, so I will be here on behalf of the embassy. It's over to me, I guess. Okay. Hi, everyone. I've been asked to say a few words about what the Dutch embassy in the UK does to promote the cultural exchange between the Netherlands and the UK. And I understand that we've been asked that because before I started working at the embassy, I wasn't aware that an embassy was even involved in promoting cultural exchange, but we definitely are on various levels. Let me start on the more boring level. We have contact with our counterparts at DCMS, which is the Ministry of Culture in the UK, to talk about all kinds of issues, for example, related to Brexit or COVID, or how they deal with things, or what they see happening in the field, how they anticipate things coming up. That is only a small part of our job, but I just wanted to mention it because we had conversations with them, I think about 2 months ago, about the COVID crisis and how to make sure that this sector, which is a hard-hit sector by this crisis, how the cultural sector can recover from this, and the test events that we are organizing in both countries. In the UK, they're organizing test events. In the Netherlands, they're organizing test events. What we can learn from each other. And because of that conversation, this week, actually, our Minister of Culture is meeting the British Minister of Culture. That's a direct result of the conversations that we've had. But that being said, that's just basically the boring part, let's be fair. We are much more involved in directly with the field, with the cultural sector. So what we do normally as an embassy, most of our time goes into having contact with museums, theaters, festivals in the UK, and telling them about the opportunities to work with artists from the Netherlands, professional artists. We're not involved in amateur arts, although it can also be good, but we are only involved in professional arts. And what we try to do is convince these organizations, well-established British organizations, to work with Dutch artists for several reasons. The main reason being that we want Dutch, I don't say main reason, the several good reasons. One of the reasons is that we want British audiences to be able to access Dutch arts and culture. And what's the best way to do that is to work with an organization that has an established audience, a British organization with a good audience. So if we can convince those to program Dutch artists, that is a win, because British audiences will be able to be in contact with Dutch arts. Secondly, of course, for the artists involved, it's very useful to, first of all, have a new audience, reach a new audience, an international audience. And secondly, it's very useful to be working with these international organizations, especially, I think, in the UK, where the organizations are of high quality, or at least the ones that we want to work with are high quality organizations on all levels, on all disciplines, from dance to literature festivals to visual arts, you name it. On all levels, the institutions in this country are of high quality, the curators are of high quality, all the people that you work with, many people, are of good quality. So that's beneficial to the artist involved. And obviously, in the end, it's also beneficial to the people of the Netherlands who profit from that, because these artists that are coming from the Netherlands get international experience, take that experience back to the Netherlands with them. And that means the arts that's on offer in the Netherlands hopefully gets lifted to a higher level, if possible. So for those reasons, we are happily forging new collaborations and working with the institutions in the UK. So that's an important thing to mention. We mainly work with organizations in the UK. We don't work the other way around. We don't tell artists in the Netherlands, if you want to come to the UK, you should apply for grants with the Dutch embassy, because we have grants available. We have some funding available, not a whole lot, but we have funding available. But that funding has to be, an application for funding has to be submitted by the arts institution in the UK. Obviously, if you're an artist in the Netherlands and you want to work with an organization in the UK, you can tell this organization about the opportunity to apply for funding with the Dutch embassy. But the funding application has to come from that institution, because we don't want to, as a government institution, we don't want to say this is the arts that should be seen in the UK. We want the arts and culture sector to decide this is important art. Here, the British institution here says this is good quality art that we want to bring to the UK. There's a demand. We don't push it onto them. So that's why it's important that that organization says we want to work with this Dutch artist, and we would like to apply for funding. And how to apply for funding is all on our website. Actually, that's quite good to mention, I think. For all of you, I don't know who's watching. I'm assuming I'm talking to mostly arts professionals in the Netherlands. If you want to know more about this, go to netherlandsandyou.nl/UK/culture. netherlandsandyou.nl/UK/culture. And there you'll find all the information of our criteria on what we can support, what we can't support. So that's another thing that we are very much involved in. And then Bojana already mentioned it, the residencies. We also, for the same reasons, getting experience in another country, international experience, especially I think in a country like the UK, which is well established in the arts. If you can get international experience here, that is useful for the artists involved, for the whole sector in the Netherlands, eventually the audiences in the Netherlands. So I would say we haven't supported many residencies as yet, but it's definitely, we've written it in our multi-annual plan that we want to do that more often. That's why we've also asked Bojana to map for us which residencies are available in the UK. And I think I don't want to talk too much about that because Bojana will be, I'll be stealing her thunder. I think that's it for now from my side, introduction-wise. I don't know if this, we will have time for questions later on, I guess. Thank you, Laurens, Bojana, back to you.
Thank you for your contribution. We're now moving to the studio. Marivol is here with me. Marivol is currently connected to the Arts Mobility Infopoint in the United Kingdom, and she has a lot of experience on artist mobility, and we are going to discuss what it means to move to the UK for a short period of time to either visit as a tourist or work there. But first to you, Marie, welcome.
Thank you.
It's good to have you. Please tell me a bit more about the Arts Infopoint.
Yeah, so thank you, Laurens. So the Arts Infopoint UK is a new initiative from the four nations in the UK. So it's led by Arts Council Wales, together with Arts Council England, Creative Scotland, and the Arts Council of Northern Ireland. And this is quite unique in the UK. So culture is evolved, and each nation has to work on culture. And they came together to provide foreign organization and specifically artists and cultural operators knowledge and information on how to go to the UK. It's obviously taking place after Brexit, but it will inform anyone who wants to go to the UK. So for Dutch nationals, but also anyone who resides in the Netherlands, or also I know that other people from different countries are listening today, so it can also be interesting for them to check out the artsinfopointuk.com website. And very soon there will be a visa guide for the UK that will be published there.
Yes, wonderful. I think it would be interesting to dive in a few situations. For example, if you are an artist and you are planning to do a residency, which is probably the case in the UK, what would you need when traveling to the UK? Is it?
So it's so taking the case of a Dutch artist, let's say, because a lot of things are going to be a bit different if you are, depending what citizenship you have. So if you are a Dutch artist, we want to go in a residency, which is not paid, and this is really important, and we can come back to this a bit later, but if you're not paid and if you go for less than 6 months, you could go on a visitor visa. But again, it depends very much on different categories. Very importantly, you cannot be paid to get this visa and to get this permit to stay in the UK. As a Dutch citizen, you wouldn't need a visa. It's called a non-visa nationals. It's a case also for a lot of different countries. But again, that depends a lot. And I think certain residencies like ACME would have a lot of experience dealing with those situations from before Brexit already. So it's good also to check in with them. And the more established residency could definitely help you out to figure this out.
Yeah. Do you have an idea about the difference between before Brexit and now regarding to fees? Is it more expensive or is it relatively stayed the same to travel to the UK? Or
yeah, well, so basically before Brexit, we could, and I say we as a French citizen living in the Netherlands, we could go to the UK just with our ID cards and just travel there for a long period without having to do any formality. And I'm talking on this on a very small level, but let's say on short-term mobility, no problem, you can go, you can earn money. With Brexit, this has definitely changed, and so you have different categories. If you are not paid, as I was saying, you can stay up to 6 months as a visitor, and that means you can also go for competitions, auditions, you meet new customers, or for fairs, attendance, and so on. If you're going to be paid, then you can stay up to 1 month maximum under the permitted paid engagement category. This is part of the visitor visa as well, but this only goes for established artists. So there you see already something happening. Then you have another category, again, visa free, if you are from a non-visa national. And that would be the permit-free festival. You have about 30, 40 festivals in the UK, which are part of a certain list, who can invite international artists, and you don't have to go through any other process, and you can be paid for that. That's about it in terms of without a visa. And I mean, under the visitor visa or without a visa if you are a non-visa national. Yep. There is yet another category, which is called the T5 creative worker visa. And there we are going more and more into the visa stuff and where you need to apply and you really need to do stuff in advance. For EU national, for Dutch nationals, the creative worker visa is relevant if you want to work in the UK for up to 3 months. There is no cost, but you need to be to get a certificate of sponsorship. So your UK client, your UK organization that invites you needs to provide you with a sponsor certificate. If there is a concession up to 3 months for EU artists, and if you need or want to stay longer and be paid for your work, then you actually need to apply for a visa. It costs about £95.
Yeah, I think
£95, and it can last for up to 24 months. And then you need to take off more things. Obviously, it's also about social security, it's health insurance, it's a lot of details like that. I mean, it's not like, I go to London and I just settle there and I will figure it out. No, you really need to do all of this in advance. And for every aspect that I've talked about, from also competitions to being paid to work in the UK, you need letter of invitation. You need to document everything before going there. You need to show that you have money on your bank account. And there are certain amounts as a bare minimum that you need to show that you have had on your bank account for so many months before traveling. So yeah, it has changed.
That's really an understatement. Is there something people have to look after about? For example, does it take long to apply for a visa, or do you need to prepare for your travels, or is it something that?
So it's a bit. Yes, it takes a bit of time. It doesn't take too long, and you can always expedite by paying an extra fee. So if you're really invited for something, you're a lead singer and opera singer, and you are invited just right now, which is very unlikely to happen. But anyhow, a dancer, that might happen more regularly, and you have to replace someone on the spot, you might need an expedite visa, and that's possible on a very short period of time, count a couple of days max. But on a normal process, it's a couple of weeks. So sorry, and I lost track of what I wanted to say. But all of this still has to be tested out, because through COVID, we haven't been testing this out. It's applicable since beginning of this year, but as venues reopen, as the cultural life starts again in the UK, we should see that happen more and more in the coming weeks and months.
Yeah, still waiting for how to work out. Yeah, I think this is quite a interesting and a lot of information. I think I would like to move on to the next part with Bojana about the residencies, to talk a bit about what's available for you there. And yeah, Bojana, please feel free to continue.
Thank you, Lawrence, and thank you, Marie, as well for this information. It already makes me think about the whole bureaucracy and the whole procedure that artists will need to do. But I think, of course, it's going to get some time to get used to these practicalities. But eventually, we'll make it through. I will start with saying a few words about the TransArtist database, and then go to the main point of discussion. I will share a very short PowerPoint. But before that, actually, so I'm guessing most of our members of the audience currently know what the TransArtist database is all about, but just a very quick introduction. We do collect information about artists in residencies from all around the world, and we present them on our website in our database, and the database is free to use for the artist and as well for the residencies. We do not ask for any kind of fee to be a member of our network. The catch in all of this is, of course, that the database is curated. So we do have a few criteria which we find important when presenting the residencies in the database. Now to come back to the topic of UK residencies. I will go straight to the PowerPoint. So you can see from the map of UK, we take Ireland out, and this is the final result. A bit of intro on this whole project, on this idea, and thank you, Koen, for starting upon it. With the support of Dutch Embassy in London, we had the idea of mapping the residency in the UK. But not only mapping the residency, we had this whole idea of doing a travel around the UK, visiting as many places as possible, maybe even try to connect these residencies or organize a meeting. So really big plans that at that time, which was somewhere end of 2019, I believe, didn't seem like anything extreme or anything extravagant. It just seemed like any other ordinary plan to work and collaborate with different institutions abroad. As it would happen, and as you all know, we encountered a very different situation than what we are used to. So with the beginning of the pandemic last year, we were not sure whether we should continue this project or postpone it for the time being. In the end, the decision was made, let's give it a try and do the mapping from the Netherlands. In this case, communicate with as many places as possible. And since things will get better quite soon, of course, we will be able to travel again. So it's good to have this information. Needless to say, every few months, the situation did not get better. So we could not travel, but we did manage to do some kind of mapping. And I'm saying some kind of mapping because I believe it is here you can see the numbers. But we have two main criteria for this mapping and in general for the TransArtist database. The first criteria is that the residency is open to international artists. The second is the fact that the residency doesn't only operate by invitation only, but they are also open, they work with open calls. We encountered quite some issues with maybe the first criteria of being open for international artists, because quite some number of residencies in the UK are open for artists, for national artists or artists based in the UK. So that was the first category that we took out from our database. In the end, we managed to come to a very round number of 60 residencies that we mapped in this process, of which 3 are in Northern Ireland, 3 in Wales, 27 in Scotland, and 27 in England. So very much even number for Northern Ireland, Wales, Scotland, and England, respectively. Per discipline, please don't get confused by the numbers, because obviously mathematically it's not correct that this is 60. And that is because quite a few residencies accommodate different disciplines. So we have overlapping in residency that can accommodate visual arts and performing arts and music. Therefore, they are separately counted in all of these disciplines, and the numbers don't match with a total of 60. Mostly our residencies in the sector of visual arts. Then we have literature, music and research, performing arts, applied arts, for curators, and the least amount of residencies in sound art. One thing that it's very important to mention at this stage is that instead of the usual mapping where you communicate with the residency organizers and they just tell you the basic info for the residency and you input data, in this case we had to do maybe 3 or 4 rounds of communication with the organizers because of the obvious monster of COVID-19, and because many organizations were not sure about their future. And with saying this, I want to say, please check out the database and see if you can find a residency that suits you. But have in mind, this is by no means final mapping of the fields in UK. I would say we can use this as a starting point or as a point in time of the pandemic, of the end of pandemic, hopefully. Because somewhere by end of the year, I think we will do a second round of checking with certain residency organizers, or with most of them, to see what's the plan and what has been happening, whether they are continue to work or what are the changes after the pandemic. With saying this, I will now show the website. Just a second, I will have to do a second share screen. So this is the database. The database you can find on our website under Air Database. Find your residency. As you can see, I already pre-selected United Kingdom and discipline any. But if you are working with a specific discipline, you can choose by the disciplines here, and then the residencies will be filtered by the discipline. But what I wanted to say, I selected a few examples just to show you a part of the regular way of working. So, for example, I'm really happy that we have Paul Bailey here from ACME, who will tell us more about they are experienced with working with artists last year and with the plans for the future. And I know they have plans for the future because with the updates, we know that they have an open call for the residency for 2022. So the open call is with a deadline of 21st of June. So this is one way that we see that some residencies, which is also a normal way of working, is to have an open call for the next year. That is very normal, very usual, and hopefully we'll see more and more residencies doing that. But then we see a lot of changes as well. For example, this is a residency in Northern Ireland, CCA Dairy, London Dairy, and they had recently an open call that is now closed. It closed beginning of this month, and they have an open call for a digital residency, but with one main condition for participating in this digital residency is that it is open to international artists, but they are also looking to select one artist that is based in Northern Ireland and one artist that is international, either artist or collective, which is completely contrary to the digital art studios, again, in Northern Ireland, in Belfast. You will see here where we write the COVID-19 updates. They also had an open call somewhere in March. Yes, that was the deadline this year. And their open call was open to artists based in Ireland and the United Kingdom. This is not something that is specific only for UK. If we speak from a residency perspective, it is something that we see on a world level, that residencies are refocusing to local artists or national artists because of the obvious difficulties of being able to travel. 101 outdoor arts creation space is, for example, I spoke to the organizers, and I believe today is the day officially UK is slowly opening or getting out of the restrictions. And they are also very cautiously, as you can read here at the COVID-19 update, cautiously starting to support more projects and residencies moving into the summer period. But some residencies, for example, this one, Green and Away, they were very clear that for this year, for 2021, they will not do anything. So they will not host artists, they will not organize events. Very clear decision. Certain number of residencies have not been published in our database, and the reason for that is because they are a little bit insecure at this point of time what's going to happen and whether they will survive the pandemic. There's been a support from what we know in UK, but it's not necessarily enough for everybody, and some organizations manage to find their way, but some are, especially the smaller organizations, more independent, it's becoming very difficult for them. Some residencies had to reschedule the artists from 2020 to this year, with a possibility to even reschedule them for 2022. Again, we will have to wait a few more months to see how this will turn out. And again, this is not something that is specific for UK, but it's for the residency field in general. So I apologize that actually my presentation has mostly been focused on COVID-19 repercussions and everything that's for the field, because as I said, we had big plans in how to approach this mapping and how to continue, but as so many big plans that involve traveling abroad, they are on standby. But I'm happy to, in any case, considering the circumstances, I'm happy that at least 60 organizations are still able to work, sustain themselves one way or another, whether with hosting local artists, with hosting national artists, changing their program online. But I'm really curious to see what's the end result whenever we will be able to predict that, I don't know. But what the end result will be after the pandemic is finished, and how the field will not only respond, which we see at this point, but how the field will look like after. Maybe there will some completely new ways of working and collaborating in the future. So it would be it from my presentation. If you have any questions, we have time later on during the Q&A. And now I would like to invite maybe Jan Sprengers from Performing Arts Fund to tell us a little bit about how the fund is dealing with Brexit and COVID-19 and everything in between.
Thank you very much for having me. For us as a Performing Arts Fund, as far as it goes for Brexit, it's very important to state that it is as important that there will be a cultural exchange, of course, after Brexit as much as it was before Brexit. And in our schemes that we have to support this cultural exchange, we try to be as flexible as possible to help Dutch organizations, but also English venues and festivals from the UK to get over certain thresholds that there will be created by Brexit. First of all, I could tell something about what we do as a support from the Performing Arts Fund. We have several ways, like for presenting Dutch groups, the theater groups, ensembles, and bands in the UK, for example. A venue or festival from the UK can apply for support, and we then support the costs for travel, transport, and visa. If these costs would be higher after Brexit because of the regulations, or maybe the transport will be more difficult, and we give higher amounts, of course. So in that way, we are flexible in the way that we have our schemes as they are now, to be flexible in that part. Also, Dutch groups themselves can apply for support at Performing Arts Fund. Most of the Dutch groups know already how to reach us. They can apply for having a tour, like for example in the UK. And it goes upon an amount of €5,000 that we can give as a support. Also, in this case, for travel, transport, and visa. So also it goes the same as for the other scheme that I talked about earlier. It's also, if it changes in the cost, the amount that we can provide will be higher as well. New thing is that we also have a scheme now that we support international co-productions. So if a Dutch group would want to work in an creating process with an theater group or an ensemble in the UK, they can also apply for support at Performing Arts Fund. All the information about these schemes you can find on our website. The challenges we think are there in the future is getting out of the pandemic. We focus as much as possible on live performing arts. You see a lot of new experimental ways of presenting the performing arts online, live streams, for example. These are very interesting new developments, but we still think that live performing is the focus that we have for the future. as soon as it is possible after the pandemic, that we would want to support as much as possible that live performances will also be shown in the UK. So all these schemes that we have now, we will still be trying to push as much as possible that theatre groups, ensembles, bands from the Netherlands will be able to perform in the UK live, because that creates the experience that is needed to have the interaction between the performer and an audience. Other challenges that we have is, of course, that the discussions and it's the environmental issues that we have to deal with. Traveling will be in the future, a discussion about about the footprint that is being created. Also, these things now are like a focus point also in the discussions that we have in the Performing Arts Fund, how to support to, if you are able to travel by train instead of plane, for example, that would be for us a focus point in the future. So for now, I think it's very important that we are as supportive as possible, that there will be as much cultural exchange as there was before between the Netherlands and the UK. If you have any questions about what I just told or how to get to these subsidy schemes that we offer, you can either go to our website, you can also ask questions, and I will be glad to answer there later in the program. That's it for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jan, very much. It was quite informative of how you can help out artists in the further process. And then adding to your presentation, I would actually now like to invite David Karsten-Schuler from Mondrian Funds, who are supporting projects in visual arts. So, okay, if you can tell us more about what's happening now with Mondrian Funds and Brexit, if I may formulate the question like that, and do you offer any kind of extra support? What's changed? What stayed the same, and so on? Thank you so much, David. You have the word.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. So my name is David Karsten-Schuler, and I'm a grants officer at the Mondrian Fund. Well, I think I can start my little talk that the year was very hectic and still is. Of course, due to the pandemic, and we had extra. We also try to support the artists in our institutes as much as possible. And in the ways we could by extra temporary extra grants, for example. So, and I must say that we were more concerned about the pandemic at the moment than the Brexit, because you can still apply for for presentations of your work in the UK. We also receive a lot of applications from all over the world, also countries from outside the European Union. So it is still possible to apply. I must say that what did change was, of course, we wanted to discourage traveling as much as possible. So we follow the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and they have to clear travels. It doesn't mean that you can't apply. As I already said, you can still apply. We still have committee meetings. For example, if you do apply as an institute or as an individual artist, we and the committee arrives at a positive ruling, we do pay, for example, the production costs of new work, costs for, or transportation costs for the artworks, costs for travel or per diems, etc. they will be reserved until the travel, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has cleared the travels to the specific countries. But I hope you do feel invited to apply. So there are different possibilities. Perhaps some of you already are already familiar with our grants, but I would like to tell a bit more about a few different options, and afterwards I will leave my my contact information for you, so you can ask and email me anytime if you have any questions. So there is the International Art Presentation Grant. This is possible. This grant is for institutes in the UK or for individual artists. You can apply for the production of new work, if that is the case, or the transport costs of your work. We can support the production costs up to 50%, and transportation costs of your work and insurance costs, we can support 100%. And of course also travel and per diem. Another option is the Art Fair International Grant. For art fairs can apply, but also galleries in the Netherlands can apply for an art fair to present Dutch artists. And another option is the Artist Project Grant. This is also meant to for the production of new work, and you can also apply for a return ticket. I have to mention that with the International Art Presentation Grant, it's also possible to apply for visa costs. Back to Artist Project, I think I cannot imagine that there's a lot of information, but as I already mentioned, you can ask questions afterwards. So Artist Project is meant for the production of new work, but also if you find a residency, you can also apply for a residency time, including material, but also travel costs, etc. Yeah, that is in short of the few options that we have, and I'm happy that we're still trying to and able to support the artists and the institutes in this very challenging times. I will leave my email address here at the platform because I have to leave for another meeting, and also check our website www.mondriaanfonds.nl, and you can check all our grants there, and all the terms and conditions are explained. And you can also find the specific contact person who are my colleagues who are responsible for specific grants. Me, myself, I am responsible for the International Arts Presentations Grant and also the Art Fair. So feel free to contact me afterwards.
Good day for finding time in your busy schedule to join us today. As you said, your email will be shared in the comments section, so whoever has questions specifically addressed to her, you can send her an email. And now we have the last presentation of today, which is from Paul Bailey, who is head of residencies and awards of ACME Studios, ACME in London. And it would be great to hear more about the experience of ACME in the past year. What has been going on? Did you have artists that were locked down in the studios? How did you manage to work with your staff? And also, what are the plans for the future? Because I'm happy to hear that there are plans for the future. Paul, the screen is yours. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, I will echo what lots of the previous presentations have said. It's been a challenging time for ACME in the past year and a half. As you know, the pandemic hit London in particularly very hard in the first wave. But I am pleased to say that we are now, situation is easing here. As of yesterday, lots of the restrictions have been lifted. There are big test events going on. So actually in the last 3 days, I have managed to go to the FA Cup final, Football Cup final, and a gallery opening last night, both of which activities have just been off the cards for the last year or so. There is a small presentation that a sort of PowerPoint presentation that I just want to run through. For those people that don't know much about ACME, this might be useful. And it's also a good example of transnational cultural exchange and cooperation, because I'm not actually operating this. I have friends across the water that's operating the PowerPoint for me. So can we have the next slide, please? So just to say that ACME has been going for 50 years. It was started by artists and for artists in the early 70s in London. It grew from one small building to the fact that we now own, I think, 14 or 15 sites across mostly the east of London, but actually across London. And we're supporting over 800 artist residents. Our main function is to provide good quality, well-managed, secure artist studios for artists in London. And over the course of our history, we've developed that out into supporting international residencies as well. At any one time, we would have maybe a dozen artists, maybe 12 to 15 artists with us from overseas. And over the course of a year, maybe we support over 30 international artists who come to London, mostly through our international partnerships. Can we have the next slide, please? So one of ACME's core aims is to support artists at all stages of their career. So we have an early career program where we support artists that are fresh out of art school, and we provide, if you like, a sort of 1-year awards program where artists can come in and get a sense that they're working in a professional artist studio. Quite often those artists are artists that have traveled from other countries to finish their art education through an MA at one of the big London art schools. And this is another good example of how we can keep those artists in London and support the arts infrastructure within London. We have a mid-career residency program as well, which involves work-live accommodation. I'm going to talk about that later. Also, on the left-hand side of your screen at the moment, you can see some of our current international partners. So they range from the Australia Council for the Arts to one-off partnerships with other organisations from Russia, Malaysia, etc. So yeah, it's a sort of global phenomenon. And we're also looking to develop, now that we've been going for 50 years, to develop a program that also addresses more mature artists' needs as well. So that's something that we're really looking for over the next couple of years as well. Maybe the next slide now. You're going to see a slide, I think, of the fire station building. Yes, you are. And that is a Victorian firefighters building in the East End of London. That's what those two big long columns are that you're looking at, and you can see some of the artists there peering over the balconies. So there's 12 purpose built live workspace studios there. There are also facilities, there's a sound room, a sort of messy space at the back of the courtyard, and a meeting room on site as well. So this is our mid-career program. We have 8 5-year residencies. So this is for artists that want to be with us for 5 years. And this is essentially a living, working environment in the East End of London. The studios, live workspaces on the left-hand side of the screen are for short-term international residency artists. So the artists come in and they immediately plug into a community of like-minded artists. And yeah, we look each year to find the right mix of artists that are coming in to work alongside our more permanent artist residents. We could maybe see the next screen now. So this is possibly most relevant for today, which is our ACME Associate Artist Residencies. So these are things that aren't generated through long-term partnerships with partnership organizations. This might be more responsive to individual artists that may have funding and to come to London, but they don't necessarily have a location in mind or a particular end result. We can facilitate a live-work residency where those artists that come to us can still plug into the support, the career support and development, and actually marketing, I guess, that ACME has at its disposal. But also they could be here for a specific instance. They could be here because they've been invited to prepare work for a one-off exhibition. They could be here because they want to collaborate with someone in London, and this gives them a live-work space that they can use as their base while they're negotiating with their in their collaboration. And so we actually try to be flexible enough and mutable enough to allow those artists to come to us at reasonably short notice. And if they have, I mean, this is a somewhat unusual residency for ACME, because usually we work with partners who then supply the cash to us while we facilitate the artists for free when they're here. But this would be more where the artist has got a grant application before they arrive in London and are looking for a base while they're in London. So if you go to the website at the moment, there is details of a live call out at the moment. I think it runs out on June the 21st. And we are looking actually to respond and fill slots that have been made vacant by the fact that the pandemic happened, and lots of activity that we thought would be planned for the end of this year and the beginning of next has been shunted back into the following year. So there is an opportunity at the moment for artists to apply to an ACME Associate Artist Residency. Can we have the next slide, please? That's my end slide, but it has all my details on. But it also says that we work with a variety of partners who share our values and wish to make a transformational impact on artists and their careers. So we exist across a whole range of activities. Because we are a large studio organisation, the largest in England certainly, then we also have an advocacy role and a research role. So we have a research department that has been doing lots of work over the last year on the pandemic, its effect on artists. We will no doubt be doing work on the impact of Brexit, but I guess at the moment we're responding to what's been happening over the last year, and ACME has spent a lot of time and resources supporting our current artists, but also supporting those artists that were with us. So over the last year, at the height of the pandemic, there were still international artists coming to London and staying with us, and we were having to meet and greet, look after those artists in situ. In many cases, recently, supporting artists in quarantine, which had its own challenges. But yeah, I think that's it for the PowerPoint. And I think for my presentation, I can answer questions, but I think that comes immediately after this presentation anyway. So maybe I can leave it to then.
Thank you very much, Paul. I would again say please use the comment section on StreamYard, Facebook, or YouTube for our audience. And in the meantime, I actually have a question for you, Paul. How, as you mentioned, somehow the pandemic stole the thunder from Brexit. But now, do you already start to get questions from artists about certain administrative process of staying in ACME? Because we heard from Marie that there is one possibility for 3 months visa, but then for staying longer, it's different. So do you already dealing with these kind of questions?
Yes, a little. So what's been really fascinating by this whole process is actually to some extent national differences. So it's interesting. Some countries have a much more bureaucratic response, and other countries seem to be quite. And I'm talking worldwide. So, for example, Australia and Quebec, who are regularly send artists to us, have just decided not to send artists to the UK at the moment, but for pandemic reasons. Artists from Europe are just coming across as normal because most of our residencies are 3-month residencies. I think our biggest international residency is 6 months residency. So that can still kind of happen within the existing guidelines that we have. But certainly for that ACME associate residency that I just mentioned, that opportunity, we have been getting quite a lot of questions around how that would be managed, whether there were any additional things that the artists had to think about before they came over. Having said that, we've had artists from Switzerland and Germany coming across through the whole process. So on the 2nd of January, which was the day after Brexit happened, we had a German artist come to stay with us. So we have been managing that. I think because we aren't paying artists, we're facilitating them to be here. I think it was Marie earlier who was saying that that's a very important distinction. So that we are here to support artists that are here, and they can do that through a regular tourist visa. We don't have to actually get involved in that. There's a more philosophical question there, which is this putting off artists from actually thinking about coming? And that's a more difficult thing, and it's very difficult to give answers around that while there's a pandemic going on, which is discouraging people from traveling or taking part.
Great, Steve. Thank you. And I think the question that you just posed, whether the visa process will discourage artists or professionals, I think it's going to take some time to get used to, because for non-European countries, it's never been easy so far in terms of obtaining visa for traveling and staying longer in one place. So I guess for now, for the countries from European Union, it will take, and for artists and professionals, it will definitely take some time to get used to. And this brings me to another question that I see in our chat box. It is from a festival here in Amsterdam, and they are asking if for their training program they would like to bring different European and non-European filmmakers to a festival in the UK. And is this still possible? And do they need a different visa? I guess this is a question for Marie Fall and Laurens. So please take it away. We do have some issues with the sound, so just a moment. Apologies for this, but I guess everybody who's been watching a live streaming of a webinar can encounter this kind of technical difficulties or problems with sharing screen. So I think it's a very common problem, and I'm sure we'll fix it very, very soon. In the meantime, please do share not only maybe your questions, but also your experiences. If you had any kind of experience and already started to apply for either a residency or to do a project in the UK, was there something that you encountered that was difficult? Was it all very smooth sailing throughout the process? It would be great to hear from our audience what the experiences are. And since we are still waiting from the technical aspects from the studio, I think we managed to share all the contact details from our presenters and participants, and I think yes, now we can hear you. So nice to have you back.
Yes, thank you, Rick, back and behind the cameras doing all of this. So yes, about this question on about training program, would like to bring different European and non-European filmmakers to festival in the UK. Depends very much from which countries people are, because European, so EEA citizens from the European Economic Area, EU and beyond, are non-visa nationals, or non-European. It depends. From Canada, you can go to the US. Canada, you can go to the UK without a visa as well. It's a non-visa national, but other countries won't be the same. So this has to be a bit fine-tuned. You need to really look, and you can go on the gov.uk website to see which countries citizens require a visa to go to the UK or not. So if it's attending a festival or even attending a conference program within a festival, you can attend as a visitor. So you don't, if you are not non-visa national, a EU citizen, you will not need a visa. You can go and attend this UK festival. If you are showing work, it should be possible too, especially if it's for a short period of time. What I would highly recommend, if you are speaking during the festival, if you are part of the conference, is really to have an official letter of invitation from the festival on their letterhead, and that if you are provided with accommodation, if they are covering any cost that you have, this on a paper listing all of this, because this will really make a difference. Because what you need to do as well, in this specific case, you could just go as a visitor. If you go in a permitted paid engagement, if you receive a fee, you actually need to see a border control agent. You cannot go through the automatic gate. You need your passport to be stamped, because otherwise it will be considered as an illegal stay in the UK and you can be deported. And I'm stressing this, and I hope that anyone listening and who will be listening to the recording, please do that. There have been more and more cases of EU citizens being detained because of permitted paid engagement, because of different ways that should be permitted in UK law, but the border control agent at the UK border are not necessarily aware of this. So please just do your homework and make sure to have all those papers, especially letters of invitation from UK institutions, ready with you when you travel. That would be Bojana for me.
I just realized I've been muted, so thank you, Marie. I've also recently read an article in The Guardian about people from EU being detained, and it is, I'm sure, an issue we will encounter, unfortunately, more in the future. But I also have a question for you, Marie, and maybe even Laurens. Can you, because you are dealing with questions around Brexit already since 4 or 5 years ago when it started, or when the whole process started. So can you maybe pinpoint what is the most common question you've been getting so far, or is there any question or any issue that people, cultural professionals, artists have been asking you during this process? I mean, during the process while we were waiting to get answers of what's going to change, and in this point when things are changing, but we still don't know where and how exactly precisely it will happen.
I've received recently was about sending work you've made to an exhibition in the UK, and how that especially works with customs and declarations at the border. It depends a bit. Currently, of course, due to COVID, it's not easy to travel there. So if you're, for example, a musician going to the UK, it's a different situation compared to a visual artist sending an object for an exhibition, for example. So in the first example, I would say if you're a musician bringing your instrument, you would need to apply for an ATA carnet. For the Netherlands, you can do it at the Kamer van Koophandel, the Chamber of Commerce, but there's a fee for it actually at 220 euros, if I'm correct. And it's basically a form that allows you to register all the objects you want to bring. And it ensures you that you don't have to pay custom fees or VAT over your instrument. And the other situation would be if you're really sending an object that is not coming back just for sale, for example, then you will have to import it to the UK and pay VAT over the price you have given to the object you have made. Marie, do you have any?
I hope that people can hear us. It's always this live kind of system where you don't really know if everything is working fine. But hopefully that works well. No, I mean, for me, main questions would be generally to figure out if the visa process had changed, because the information came quite late. I mean, the TCA, the trade agreement came very late in December, so up until that time, we had actually no idea if things would be happening in a way that would be favorable, if there would be an artist's clause or a way for artists to be recognized as a specific category of professionals. It has not been the case per se, so we are falling into general categories. And generally, I must say that I am much more active with UK sector lead bodies. In every discipline in the UK, they are very concerned on how they can continue to exchange with EU professionals and continue to tour in Europe. There are a lot of issues concerning transportation and really traveling through Europe for now that I've left the European Union. So I think I'm much more busy on this level, and there is a lot of concern on that part, and also a lot of concern around work permit. It's not really the case coming to the Netherlands. For anyone from the UK listening, coming to the Netherlands, and we will talk about this next week, of course, but it's fairly easy. Other countries are much more difficult. So we are demystifying all of this with a lot of professionals, making sure that UK artists get this information and don't end up in those gaps and of new knowledge to acquire. And again, it's about learning about this. Everyone has been facing this beforehand. It's not new. It's just that we were really privileged before being all together in the EU and not having to deal with those questions.
Thank you. My next question would be addressed to Jan, to Koen, with small changes. Because I'm thinking, did you maybe? I'm sorry. Maybe before I ask my question, I see that Paul might have something to add to what you were just saying, Lawrence and Marie. So maybe we can give the word to Paul.
Yes, I think just I would concur with what Marie just said. I think things are. I think the nature of the last-minute trade agreement is being played out now. That there's an element of catch-up that's going on. The government have not really been paying a great deal of attention to the arts because, you know, quite rightly, they're trying to deal with a pandemic and the rollout of vaccines. But certainly arts organizations have been advocating very strongly on behalf of artists that there are issues that need to be addressed and sorted out. I know that also that there is some sympathy within governmental circles because through the Arts Council, ACME has a connection through the Arts Council. ACME has also been supporting its artists. ACME has paid the best part of 300,000 euros to its artist tenants this year to support them through the pandemic. And because of the nature of that support and Arts Council support as well, that we have a real role in advocacy on behalf of artists and this sector. And I know that we are saying that there are issues that need to be sorted out because we have 40 years of international exchange now that becomes slightly more precarious. But I think I was really just coming in on what Marie was saying, which I think is very telling, that there hasn't been a lot of forethought to some of this, and the last-minute trade agreement, I just think, is a symptom of that.
Thank you, Paul. Koen, you also had something to add to this topic. You will have to unmute.
Sorry, classic. Yeah. Can you hear me? Yes. No, I just wanted to make sure that that message is very clear, that indeed the question, are artists been put off by traveling to the UK because of Brexit? I think it should be very clear that they shouldn't. Of course, there are hurdles. There are some hurdles. There's a little bit of extra work that needs to be done. First of all, I think it's mostly the work of the organization that is inviting you over to the UK that needs to do that work. They need to make sure that if a visa is required or a work permit is required because you're coming for more than a month, for example, if that is required, they need to do the work. You need to obviously check if everything is done properly, but there are some extra hurdles, but it's limited, especially if you come for a shorter period. If you come for less than a month to the UK, it's a bit more difficult the other way around. I understand that British artists are complaining that if they want to travel through the EU and they go from country to country to country, they have to apply for visas and permits in every single country. But for us, going to the UK, it's a straightforward procedure. And there might be ATA carnets, but it's not even up to you to find out if you need to organize that. I guess that is up to the organization that invites you over, if it's worth it. Because if you're just bringing guitar. Oh, sorry, I hear echo. If you're just bringing a guitar, I understood that it's probably not even worth going for an ATA carnet, because most of the people at border control, they will let you through with one guitar. There's no problem. If you come with a truck full of stuff, then yes, make sure you have an ATA carnet.
I would like to just jump in on that. I do agree with most of what you said, Koen, but there is, I don't know which camera, this one, thank you. There is the case for independent artists, so if you're not supported by a crew and so on, there will be more hurdles and a bit more homework to do, and especially to know about your gears, to know about all of this before you travel to the UK. So I think Indeed, there is a big responsibility to the inviting organization, but at the same time, I would really recommend for independent artists or small companies to also check in with DutchCulture, for instance, or with Arts Infopoint UK, because we will provide this information for free and really tell you, okay, you need this paper, you need that, you are missing this and that. Especially if you are really small scale starting artist, that's really important to just check this out beforehand. And indeed, you're right on the carnet issue. It's not necessary for everyone, but as you tour with maybe a lot of equipment, that's important, especially within the performing arts. So that's a point to keep in mind as well.
Thank you for all these practical tips and tricks of traveling, Paul.
Well, just to say as well, I mean, we have maybe 10 artists have arrived to ACME since January the 1st, and every time an artist comes in, it's a learning process for us as well. But we haven't actually had any problems, and this is on top of a pandemic as well. So we've had to get our heads around quarantining artists, making sure they have the tests, all of those things as well. And so far, it is actually, it's been okay. We haven't had too many difficulties. Now, I think it may be different for performing artists, because I think that's involves a whole set of other criteria. But just from ACME's perspective, it's so far we are managing okay.
And that was my question to Paul, actually, to Jana. I'm sorry that I wanted to pose is what have you heard? What's been happening?
Yeah, I also hope that like Dutch performing artists would not be discouraged by Brexit to go to the UK and perform, or accept invitations from festivals and venues in the UK to go there and really do live performances. We can unfortunately not make it easier for you to do all the procedures that you need to do. What we can do is that we, when it is more expensive to try to arrange everything that you need to do, we can give that support, like for travel expenses, for transport, for like if you have a set that you need to bring there, visa, for example. And now in the case of pandemic, of the corona pandemic, we also provide costs for, or we can support costs for tests that you need to do, and either to go there and to come back. So that's what we can do in this whole situation, and also to the future when Brexit is there, and give more possibilities.
Great, thank you. And it sounds really good that you are enabling this support with the tests, because we hear this question quite a lot from artists. Can I get extra support if I need to be in quarantine for extra 10 days instead of the planned 30 days and so on? So it's good to hear that
we only do the tests. We don't do the quarantine costs. That would be like too much. Actually, no, we cannot provide the cost for a hotel for 3 weeks. No, that's not possible. No.
Very clear.
Yeah.
Koen?
Yes, on international travel, for as long as the travel advice is negative, we are also not supporting travel at this moment. I want to add to what Davy had to say about discouraging traveling. But what we do, we also make it available that people can now apply for any project. If they do a collaboration that doesn't require travel, we can still support it. So if, for example, there's an organization in the UK wanting to work with an artist in the Netherlands, or two artists wanting to work with each other online, there are options. Again, the British organization will have to apply for funding. Everything that I said in the beginning, all the same criteria apply. But we do support. That's actually one of the good things that might have come out of this. We are now also supporting online it doesn't have to even be online. Some people come with other creative solutions to not traveling and still working together.
Yes, we've seen a lot of examples in the past year of these possibilities of how to work behind the screen and still work together with your colleagues and peers around the world. In absence of any further questions, I hope we didn't, with everything that you said, that our participants said, that we will encourage people not to get discouraged in this whole process of Brexit. And I believe that also slowly all of us are coming out from the PTSD of the pandemic. So I guess it's going to take some time until we chew on this information and start applying and start doing work in real life and being physically present. Are there any last words, maybe from some of you? Well, last words for this webinar on the topic before we conclude the afternoon. Yes. Maybe.
Yes, just to say that it's, even if it seems that a lot of things are more complicated, and again, I hope we didn't put you off, it takes more homework, but there are a lot of organizations ready to help, and a lot of institutions, as Paul was mentioning before, as Jan and Koen as well were mentioning, there is much more readiness from the institution side to help with this paperwork to not stop international exchange due to this political decision of Brexit. And I think we will continue with Infopoint UK to work with different EU networks, so from the UK with EU network, to make sure that across any discipline there is enough information and people know where to go for this information. So there will be more sessions like that about specific countries, or also about the UK really in detail. So stay tuned for more on that as well.
Paul?
It was just a PS to the virtual opportunities. I think everyone has understood that there are really fantastic virtual opportunities to engage, but it's really important to keep, I know there's still a real demand from artists in the UK and from artists to come to the UK. It's really important to think about that in real life opportunity and encourage those. And I remember being, I'm quite old now, but I remember being young, and I started out as a curator and going to, I was given a grant to go to the Venice Biennale and an Art Basel, and actually attend the Apple curatorial program in Amsterdam. All of those were amazing experiences that really informed, you know, the rest of my career in the arts. And I think there's still that real hunger and demand from artists, both within the UK and outside of the UK, to continue that exchange.
I couldn't choose better words to conclude this webinar. Thank you, Paul. I believe we all stand behind exactly what you said, and we all strongly believe in this, not only necessity and the need to travel abroad physically and to see things and work with people, but also the importance of bringing that experience back to where you are actually based. Once again, I will thank everyone for participating and taking the time to join us today, and especially thank you for the openness and availability. That's in the future, I'm sure a lot of our audience members from now will contact you, because we touched upon a few topics, but I'm sure there is so much more that we could cover. But we did what we managed to do in this 90 minutes. I wish you all a great afternoon. I hear UK is opening up slowly. The same happens in the Netherlands. I hope it's going to spread out into the world, and that slowly but surely we'll go step by step towards, I wouldn't say going back to the old normal, but going back to some kind of physical presence in life. Thank you again, and I wish you a great afternoon to the participants and to our audience.